Okay, I'm going to show you the system that's used with Canyon's teachers. This is the system that's been used with me over the last several years. It's called the Ctess, or Canyon's Teacher Effectiveness Support System. It has 3 different sections: the documentation of student growth, the evidence of instructional quality, and the response to stakeholder input. And I will go over those 3 in depth in just a little bit later. It requires all teachers to create their own growth plan and set their own goals. It provides mentoring and feedback to teachers that are career teachers, as well as those teachers who are new to the teaching profession. It uses multiple reliable and valid measures to make conclusions about a teacher's potential to how effective they'll be throughout their career. And then it provides feedback from the teacher as well to how their district's educator effectiveness process is working. So the 3 components that I mentioned above are the assessment of instructional quality. That's the big chunk. How's the teacher doing in the classroom? The principal will come in, they will observe the opportunities to respond, the on-task, how are the students engaged, and what techniques is the teacher using. And so that's 70% of the teacher's score. Evidence of student growth is 20%, and response to stakeholder input is 10%. And I'll go over those 2 in just a little bit more depth in a few minutes. The evaluation changes from year to year. So if a teacher is a career teacher, in phase 1 of the Ctess cycle, they'll get a score at the end of the year, and then they'll keep that score for the next 2 years, unless there's something wrong that the supervisor sees something that needs to be really worked on, then they won't get to keep that score. But for most teachers, they get to keep that score for the next 2 years as well. If you're a provisional teacher, a new teacher to the Ctess cycle, you'll get a rating during that first cycle, and it'll give them opportunities to look at what they need to work on, try to become proficient in something that they've got a deficit in. They can work on those skills. Then the principal would come back again for a second cycle, and whatever they get at that second cycle, that'll be their final rating for that year. But provisional teachers do not get to keep that score. They've got to complete this same cycle for the next 2 years. So there is a yearly assessment with the Ctess. The teacher on their own develops a team goal for their grade level and an individual goal based on their continuous school improvement plan. There are classroom observations, as I mentioned before. They're called IPOPs, or Instructional Priorities Observation Protocol. Career teachers are observed twice in phase 1. In phase 2 and 3, they're only observed once a year. Provisional teachers are observed 4 times a year, every year for the first 3 years. We have to provide documentation of lesson planning. We also have the IPOP, and then we have to provide proof of our collaboration and our team meeting and how we've worked with each other to meet these goals that we've set up here in our goal setting. We have response to stakeholder input, and this stakeholder input is where there have been surveys sent out to parents in our community, as well as students in our own classrooms. And we look at that data from those surveys and we analyze it, and we write an action statement on how we can improve where parents and students think that we need to improve. In the student growth section, they generate a growth percentile for each teacher that's based on SAGE scores, or student learning outcomes. And so our goal is to reach that growth percentile. This process is focused on growth and provides educators with actionable feedback. If an educator receives a lower rating on a standard, they get specific feedback on how to become more effective. We have coaches available at every school to help teachers reach those goals. The student growth, they can choose where they want to meet that. It could be English language arts, math, science. And then the stakeholder, like I said, we have surveys that are given to the students. If the teacher is on that cycle where she needs student surveys, there's also a parent survey that's sent out every year. So as a teacher, I find this valuable in that I get to set my own goals, and I have the opportunity to look at my principal's feedback when she comes in and make the adjustments, and I get to prove to her, how am I meeting that student's growth, and how am I using my instructional qualities that we have learned as a faculty. They provide each teacher with a toolkit, and there's lesson plan samples for those new teachers that need to look at something. There's rubric samples, because if you're providing a lesson, you have to also provide the rubric on how you would score that. There's DOK resources, documentation resources. So there are so many things that the district provides to help teachers and guide them that I think it's really, really a good tool. So, and again, this is just more resources that are at the disposal of the teacher. Here's a checklist that shows, okay, I need to do this, this, and this. If I want to be effective, I've got to make sure that I've got all of these things in here. Or if you're me, I'm like, okay, I want to be highly effective. These are the things that I need to make sure that I'm doing. As an administrator, I also find that it's a good tool because I know exactly, I've got my iPad in front of me, I know what I'm looking for, and I'm able to take that data from the iPod and provide valuable feedback to my teachers. So this was just a little look at our Ctess that we have in the Canyon School District.